Have you ever stopped to think about this? A brilliant research study is finished, full of findings that could literally change people's lives. But then, what if those findings never actually reach anyone outside of a scientific journal? It sounds crazy, but it's a massive problem. It can take, on average, 17 years for new research to make it into everyday clinical practice. 17. That's almost 2 decades of amazing work just sitting on a shelf. So today, we're going to break down how we fix that and make sure research actually does what it's supposed to do, make an impact.
So, here's the game plan for this explainer. First, we're going to tackle that problem of research that sits on a shelf. Then, we'll get to the secret ingredient, the untapped expertise of patients. After that, we'll walk through a super practical 4-step plan for making a real impact, see how to put it into action, and wrap up with the amazing ripple effect this whole approach creates.
All right, let's jump right in. To really get why the solution works, we first have to understand the problem itself. This whole idea of research that sits on a shelf.
Okay, so this process you're seeing here, it probably looks pretty familiar to a lot of you. A researcher has an idea, they write a proposal, they get the funding, run the study, analyze everything, and then boom, publication. For a really long time, that last step was seen as the finish line. The mission was accomplished.
But here's the big question, the one that changes everything. What if getting published isn't the end of the story? What if it's just one stop along the way to something way bigger, something way more important?
And you know, the source guide we're digging into today just nails it with this quote. If you want to have a real impact out there in the world, you have to think bigger than just the publication. It's really about getting that knowledge into the hands of people who can actually use it.
So, if the goal isn't just to get published, how do we actually get this research to the people who need it most? Well, that brings us to our next section, and honestly, it's a total game changer. We need to tap into the expertise of patients.
So who are we really talking about here? Patient and family partners. These are people who have direct, personal, lived experience with a health condition. And here's the key. They're not just subjects to be studied. They are vital members of the research team itself, bringing a kind of wisdom that you just can't get anywhere else. And this comparison just lays it out so clearly. The old way, you've got researchers kind of working in a silo, where success means getting into a journal. The new way, it brings patient and family partners in from the very start. Success isn't just a paper anymore, it's about seeing a real-world impact. And your audience suddenly explodes from just other academics to patients, the public, and even the people making policy.
Okay, so we totally get the why now. Why involving patients is so critical. So let's pivot to the how. The source guide gives us this fantastic 4-step plan for impact. It's a really clear roadmap for making all this happen.
The plan has 4 main stages, and they make perfect sense. You start with dissemination reflection, and then you move into project planning, then you analyze the findings, and finally, you build the dissemination plan. It really covers the whole life cycle of the project. All right, let's put some meat on those bones. What does it actually look like to put this plan into action step by step?
Step 1 is all about flipping the usual process on its head. You have to start with the end in mind. Before a single thing happens, the whole team, researchers and partners together, has to ask a fundamental question. What is our ultimate goal here? Are we just trying to educate people, or are we aiming for something bigger, like changing the entire system? That one answer shapes everything else.
Now check this out, because this is huge. See where step 2, the project planning, happens? It's right at the beginning. Patient partners aren't just brought in at the very end to give a thumbs up. Nope. They are there from the start, helping to shape the proposal and the protocol. And that is absolutely critical.
And here is a perfect example of why getting them in early is such a game changer. You've got the research team, rightly, focused on things like scientific rigor. But then the patient partner asks, hey, what does meaningful evidence actually look like to my community? The team budgets for lab equipment. The partner makes sure there's money for community outreach and for paying other community members for their time. It's about blending 2 essential kinds of expertise.
So let's move on to step 3, digging into the results. And again, look at when this happens. Partners aren't just handed a final report. They are right there in the trenches, helping to make sense of the data as it's being analyzed.
And this is the magic right here. The data can tell you what is happening, but the lived expertise of a patient partner can help everyone understand why. They provide that real-world context that turns a bunch of numbers into a story that actually means something.
And that brings us to the grand finale, step 4. After all this amazing collaborative work, the team comes together to build a dissemination plan that is so much smarter and more strategic than just, sending a paper to a journal.
And just look at all the creative options on the table. We're not just talking about an article. We're talking social media, videos, podcasts, easy-to-read infographics, town halls in the community, even sitting down with lawmakers. Patient partners know where their communities are and how to reach them. They're the experts on what will actually work.
So when you put all of these pieces together, the early involvement, the teamwork on analysis, the smart outreach, you get more than just a better research project. You get what we can call the ripple effect of research. So if you're going to take anything away from all this, let it be these 4 things. 1, think beyond the journal. 2, partner up with patients and their families from day 1. 3, plan for real-world impact, not just for a publication. And 4, use that powerful lived expertise to make the research actually matter to people.
Because at the end of the day, this is why it's so important. When research stops being just an academic exercise and becomes a true partnership, it transforms into a powerful tool, a tool that can raise awareness, empower entire communities, and drive the kind of real policy change that truly improves people's lives.
And that kind of leaves us with one final thought to chew on. Just imagine it for a second. What if all research wasn't just designed to be published, but was designed from the very first day to actually change the world?